high as a kite.
What's up, peoples? What's up, peoples? What's up, peoples? And I gotta unmute my guest because we just, as you just seen, we tried working with Streamlabs OBS, and Streamlabs OBS never fails me in failing me. With that said, welcome to another episode of the Prognosis and I got a special guest here. My homie Will from Xbox Uncut. Okay, and me and Will has worked together on multiple podcasts in the past. I remember back in the early days when I used to harass the podcast, chat vigorously, insulting Satya Nadella and my wife, but they were so gracious and so kind to me. And as I've become a content creator myself, they were one of my earliest supporters. I remember when, oh gosh, I'm just having a brain fart. I remember when Dustin had said, "Hey, MM2K, you're starting a podcast. What's the name of it?" Dustin and Jason both had asked me, and I was ashamed. And then they said, and I told him, I was like, "It's Scrampunks," and Dustin was like, "Scrampunks? Sound like some shit you eat in the morning in a bowl of cereal." But with that being said, hey, Heath Stevens, what's going on? I am live now that my homie Heath Stevens is here. I know I'm good.
What's up, Heath? How you doing, man? Thanks for stopping by.
So for those of you that are not aware of what your boy MM2K is about, and why me and Will are doing this project here is, again, I appreciate all gamers. I appreciate everything about gaming and the diversity of thought, along with any other diversity within the community. I came into this generation primarily an Xbox guy, as my boy Dirk Griggity likes to say, as he is coined. He can make t-shirts out of that. Big ups to everybody as you're coming through. I'm sorry because with some difficulties here with our friends at YouTube, the Almighty Spartan God, he said, "Damage, Broadband, Bullies, the beauty of sound and motion. Peace and blessings, my guy." My homie Banghouse Productions, what's up? What's up, C-Note? What's going on? Appreciate all of y'all. Tweet this out for me. Hit that like button, please, because this is going to be a good one, right? So, again, we appreciate all the gaming. I am an Xbox guy as far as the type of games that I like. I like what Xbox had presented coming into this generation. But I think Will would agree with me that that we've seen a diversion from what originally captured us. And it has brought up some concerns. Now, and the Xbox community is split. And with that split, we didn't want one side or the other to get drowned out. So what we're trying to do here is we're going to review the Xbox strategy, like go through it with a fine-tooth comb, talk about it, talk about the good, talk about the bad, talk about the indifferent, and what they need to do going forward. And I think this is going to be a very informative and different podcast because we're going to talk about this early on after we go through the regular introductions and stuff like that. But Xbox in general, they're kind of opening their ear a little bit and they're trying to listen a little bit more. I think they're doing it begrudgingly, but I think the reality of A, the backlash of E3, and B, the emergence of Sony, trying to further yank away the Xbox hardcore brass. I think Microsoft has finally had to look in the mirror, assess themselves and say, okay, maybe we do have to do something different. You know what I mean? So I want to get Will's thoughts on that because Will has a pedigree as far as podcasting, content creation, all that good stuff. And with that said, I'm going to shut up right now, tweet this out, and let my homie Will talk a little bit about his pedigree with Xbox podcast. Just let our listeners know who may live under a rock, Will, and may not be familiar with the Xbox Uncut platform, your platform, and what you guys do there.
Oh, well, look, Thanks for having me, Moss. I really appreciate it. You're an awesome guy. I really enjoy your podcast. I always catch every single episode. Very informative. Always appreciate the business angle you take with it, and it's also highly entertaining. always have fun. It's weird. It's almost like you're reading on my mind sometimes when I like listen to you. It's like it looks like the great minds think alike.
Think alike, yeah.
Yeah. So it's a funny thing. Yeah. So I do a podcast with Dustin and Steph. Keep it G. It's called Xbox Uncut. I had joined a little bit later in its life cycle, so so you'll see me like pop up like a little later. As up to recent, kind of just because I love the show but before they were doing the show, it was a different cast, and it was stuff happened, and it was like so they switched over to different people, and I wanted to join some of that, and I thought it was cool to be part of a of ongoing podcast. They talk about games, particularly Xbox, because that's the one of my passions. So I joined Xbox Uncut, and every week we do a podcast at the Mixer and YouTube. We stream on all three platforms: Twitch, Mixer, and YouTube. And we just talk about the weekly news and stuff like that. But also, bring in topical stuff, so it won't be just news all the time. So that's pretty much how I get into the gaming podcast. I used to do podcasts on comics. An event called it was called the Avengers Assemble podcast. It was back in the day.
Okay.
And you won't find it because it's what you call it. It's lost in the ether because it was I used to host it on what was that? I think it was what's the name of it's a podcast hosting service. It's the name escapes me, but so it's not anymore online, but it could be called the Avengers Assemble podcast, which is fun. But that's kind of a side note. But yeah, so I always wanted to do a show with you, Moss, about the stuff that's going on with Xbox. It's a very interesting time right now. A lot of division, like you said, a lot of it's very interesting because it's like almost like it's almost as bad as like remember when they were first showing off the Xbox One.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's the fandom is it's very segregated right now.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's almost as bad as that, maybe even worse because it's like. It's not even just hating on the product. It's just like being just being disappointed by it, and after all the stuff they've done at the end of a gen, which is not good. But
yeah, I think it's just being genuinely honest, right? And being a typical consumer. I mean, this is what gets me, right? And we'll go into the meat and potatoes because there's a lot, man. I mean, we worked hard to put this together, right? And particularly Will. I pretty much, said, Will, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do that? And he helped put together a manifesto of topics of things to go over and discuss, in the hopes that somebody within the Xbox brass, whether it's super high level, mid level, whatever, is listening and saying, you know what, while we're on this forgive us tour, you know what I'm saying? maybe there's some information here that we can pick from. But with that being said, I think one of the biggest things that me and Will has talked about over the last few weeks behind the scenes is that we were kind of disappointed at the whole take that many people within the Xbox brass has taken to a lot of the complaints out there. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some situations and some instances where people are over the top. I may have subscribed to some of that some of the time, just a little bit of the time. But with that being said, I think there's genuine concern and outrage like a typical consumer. Let me say this real quick. Let me just give this example. One of the examples that I always give, Will, is like, say me and you were at Arby's, right? Mm-hmm. I go in there, I just want curly fries. So I get my curly fries. I'm excited. I'm ecstatic. They're nice and crisp and everything tastes good. You know what I'm saying? Big up to Meg, Dave, O in the chat for joining. Thank you for joining us. And also tweet this out too. We're actually simulcasting to Mixer as well. Hold on. Why is my Nightbot Meg Dave O? my Nightbot is picking with people. You're good. I just wanted to make sure because my Nightbot kicked. Hold on. It kicked. What is going on? What? Xbox is. Don't do that. Hey, look, Nightbot. What is you doing? I might have to put you in timeout. Jesus. Okay. With that being said, I'm sorry, Meg Davo. I think I reinstated your comments. My deepest apologies. Jeez Louise. With that being said, okay, so we're both in Arby's. I get my curly fries. You come in later. You want a whole value meal, right? And they keep telling you, okay, well, we understand that you want this value meal, sir, but it's coming. It's on its way. Now, I overhear them saying, well, you know what? It's not coming for another day or two. So hopefully this guy will just go away and will just still purchase the meal, even though he didn't get everything, right? And in response to that, the typical person with any sense of decency is going to go to Will and say, Will, they're scheming you. They're scamming you. Yeah, I may have got my curly fries, but shit, they might jit me tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's voice your concern. Put something in the suggestion box. That's what normal consumers would do, right? Look out for each other. Not in the gaming community. The gaming community is more or less like, I'm happy, I'm satisfied, you shut the hell up, I got my curly fries. I don't care if you got gypped. And it's not about the caring part of it. It's not the Care Bear part of it. I don't care about that. It's just the whole mind state that if they're gypping Will on Monday, they're gonna gyp my ass on Tuesday. So I don't get this mantra here. But what are your thoughts on that, Will? Do you see some of that same stuff, or do you think it might be a little bit different?
No, absolutely. It is like a big waiting game for for the fans. That's not really good. You got to have them always interested, always always have them what's the word, initiated. I mean, I don't know. It's like you got to have their attention all the time, because otherwise you start to lose them, and then you kind of lose your focus, and you're not doing anything good with your brand, which is not good.
They got to be engaged. Definitely.
Yeah.
They definitely have to be engaged. For some reason, I had some little snazzy visuals for when we talked, and it's not working. So let me do this real quick, bro. That's the chat box. I think with that being said, we did the introductions and all that good stuff. So for anybody that's, we're going to drop links in the chat and everything like that. For any of you that have not caught Xbox Uncut, well, let me just say this. This is how I caught on the Xbox Uncut. All right. And why I appreciate Xbox Uncut. You have 4 individuals, sometimes 5 or 6, you know what I mean? Including Tim Dog and Eric, right? Eric is still on the show.
Yeah, Eric. He was supposed to be on last time, but he's probably on Steam.
Yeah, and Eric is very occasional, right?
Yeah.
So I just didn't want to assume, But with that being said, you have 5 varying, you have every part of the Xbox spectrum represented. So even if you're not an Xbox person, I think you can appreciate that podcast. So when I originally came to the Xbox community listening for Xbox centric stuff, because at the beginning of the generation, I was satisfied. I was happy. I didn't mind the DRM. I didn't think it was the end of the world and all that other shit. Yeah. And you just heard everybody, just pretty much down the system. And I couldn't quite understand why. So with that being said, I went to look for an Xbox centric podcast, and to my delight, I came across Xbox Uncut. That said, I hate to, I don't want to get Will caught into my fuckery here, but Xbox Uncut is authentic. I think you have a problem with people being authentic in the gaming community, whether you like the information that's being mentioned or not. And if you're looking for an authentic take from different opinions, I think you guys had Chris Steele on there at one point in time, right?
Chris was on.
Yeah, definitely. Tim Dog has been. I mean, it's going. Tim Dog and Chris Steele are on different spectrums of the Xbox community right now.
Yeah.
And with that being said, that's what I'm talking about. If you want authentic stuff, if you don't want. Again, and this is no reflection on what Will thinks. If you don't want that Cambridge Analytica style of Xbox propaganda, you know what I'm saying, then you will heavily appreciate what Xbox Uncut has to offer. So, with that said, man, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's a ringing endorsement. Thank you so much, man. That means a lot to us, man. That's awesome. And we do remember having you on the on the streams and like in the chats and stuff like that. I always remember seeing you there. It was Moss 2000, right? Like,
yeah.
So I remember seeing there. I'm like, man, that's a good dude, man. And I'm so glad you have like such great content right now, and you're doing your own thing, and I'm really proud of you, man. You're doing such an awesome job.
I appreciate it, man. I mean, like I said, you guys were original supporters, right? And again, it meant a lot. I mean, you guys don't understand. Like before Broadband, Bullies, and all that stuff, before I was even brave enough to do what I do right now, just by Dustin saying, you know what, support the show and to give me a couple of give me some kudos on the show, that helped push me into, that helped make MM2K, so
yeah, that's awesome. And Dustin he's always great with tech. So if anybody you guys need help with tech and making your own show, just refer to Dustin. He'll hook you up, man.
Absolutely. Hey, I remember when true story, we all talk behind the scenes, it's not all just business and we all go about our business. So we were talking before the last Xbox Uncut, and big ups to Griggity. Griggity's in the chat.
Dirt, what's up, man?
We were talking, right, and Dustin was like, "Oh, so let me plug the website." So I gave him the website that was there at the time. He said, "Oh, if you ever need some help cleaning this up, let me know." But again, it was that insight that made me go to the drawing board, and now we have the PNTS 2.0 out there, and I think it's a little bit more cleaner. So
It looks good, man. I really like the way it looks, and shout out to Dirt too, man. Dirt's an awesome guy.
Oh yeah.
He's put out some really good videos recently, especially his the ones with his daughter.
Man,
that was really good.
More, you hear that, Dirt? We need more of that, Dirt. You heard that? It's a ringing endorsement, because when MM2K talks, it's like, man, if this crazy guy doesn't get, this crazy bastard don't get the hell out of here.
I know they make fun of him, Z on the show. Shout out to Z and his good show. Always enjoyed it, really entertaining. But yeah, Dirt's a good guy, man. I like it that he's doubled down on the Xbox.
Absolutely.
He's doing it for us. He's the one who's taking the bullet for us.
He got a bunch of shrapnel embedded in him right about now. But I guess it's all worth it, right, Dirt? With that said, hey man, we can go right into the meat and potatoes here.
Absolutely.
The Xbox. But before that, we talked about this a little bit. So this is not RIP Xbox, right?
No. This is kind of just like almost like kind of like a report card, almost slash analyzation slash business type of thing. So it's a bit of everything. It's not supposed to be like we're down on Xbox or anything. It's just we're kind of taking a more analytic look at it and what we think they can do better. Stuff like that. It's not just all. Because it gets kind of, it gets a little old after a while if you hear the same thing over and over and over again.
Exactly.
So yeah, and I appreciate the way you've taken different angles at this type of thing. So hopefully this is going to be an interesting show for this type of thing.
Absolutely, yeah. Because I get it, guys. Everybody doesn't want to see me trying to kick Phil's ribs in every Tuesday, right? I get it. So. Where we can, just for sake of balance, if Phil's up to something nefarious, or anybody for that matter is up to something nefarious and they're trying to do some sneaky shit, if I got to talk about it 8 Sundays in a row, then I got to talk about it 8 Sundays in a row. But, where we have more prevalent news, like particularly with the government, and the scapegoating of video games and some other shit that's been going on, we're going to do it. You know what I'm saying? So, Yep. So, speaking of positive, like, and I say that with a big asterisk, positive, like, well, okay, before I get into that, my naughty Nightbot, and I don't mean anything nefarious with that or anything sexually overcharged, but my naughty Nightbot that's in the chat just dropped the link to the loot.com. That's the free messaging app. If you guys can do us a huge favor, help support the channel, help support spreading the word out, tweet this out. If you have a message, because I'm floating through various different screens to help catch my eye, because I'm an old guy and I lost my bifocals. So if you put something in there, we'll definitely respond to it while we're going over this report card, as Will said.
Please support Moss on this. Definitely check out the link. Shoot us a question. It'll be greatly appreciated.
With that said, Matt Booty's interview, Will.
That was
your initial thoughts about that, man?
Yeah, very interesting because usually we don't have too many interviews with Matt Booty. He's kind of a little reclusive, you know. So
Exactly. Yeah. Yep.
yeah, so it had a lot of interesting tidbits in there. I know you weren't kind of fond of Game Informer's questions, some of them.
Yeah.
From my
Yeah.
read of your report.
Yeah.
But they do have some interesting ones with regards to like the Microsoft letting go of what's the studio?
Oh, shit! And that was supposed to be part of my notations too.
Yeah, but it was one of their studios that they let go, and they had like an interesting like little out clause. And I was actually thinking about that. I was like, do other studios have this? Because I figured that would be like an important thing to have if you're gonna join Microsoft. You have like an out clause. So I thought that was an interesting little tidbit there. And he had a lot of interesting news, regards to like Ninja Theory and what they're doing, and how that fits in into their their whole business and stuff like that, which we'll talk about definitely. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a lot of cool little tidbits that we got from what his role is in Microsoft, because he's pretty much taken Phil's spot, so he's like the man now. So Phil's kind of just behind the purse strings. He does the macro stuff, but Matt Booty's kind of the he's the guy you want to look more to with regards to studio acquisitions and what's going on with this studio. So I think that was a really cool interview.
And I think that's a smarter approach for the simple fact that he's getting beat. He's getting, and when I say he, I mean Phil. Phil's getting clubbed across the back, across the neck. He's catching that baby seal syndrome. Please, Peter, don't come after me. But he's getting it bad. And I think what it is that sometimes when people are masterminds of certain initiatives, they love so much what they're doing, right? And they love it so much that they feel like that they got to facilitate it. Maybe nothing against anybody else. I don't think Phil is doing it to slight anybody else, but I think he's so behind his own message that he makes himself a target. Yeah. And I think one of the genius of Sony's marketing is you'll hear names like Yoshida, but Yoshida's not taking up all the spotlight. It's Yoshida, Jim Ryan, you know what I'm saying? Sean Layton, anybody else that they can get out there. What's his name? The guy that does all the wizardry technical wise. Mark Cerny. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And so I think now that again, Microsoft on its apology, please forgive us tour, I think they've realized that, and he's putting Matt Booty out there a little bit more. Now, that said, to your point, Will, I did not care for the questioning of the Game Informer or whatever publications. I didn't like his questions. One of the first questions he came out of the game. Well, no, that wasn't the first question. I'm sorry, but he asked Matt Booty if he would list who his favorite first-person studio was.
That's an odd question, isn't it?
Yeah, that was a very odd question. Like, I guess he was just spitting in the wind, throwing a Hail Mary, whatever pun you want to use. I guess he's just, but I don't know if it was a test to see if he could, how much they were on their game. Maybe he would. Maybe that's something they talked about in his studio together. The Game Informer people. Maybe because Phil Spencer had such a difficult time with the Fortune magazine interview that maybe they could take a pulse. But I don't know. What did you think? I mean, again, we're not going to spend forever on this. But what did you think about him just asking him to name his favorite first party studio?
I mean, an ulterior motive could have been like, what do you think is like the top quality studio?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that might have been what he kind of was, kind of reaching at.
Yeah.
Because, and also it'd be interesting to know what his favorite studio is, because maybe, there'll be something interesting coming out of that one. Okay. And it's also just as a side note, the studio we are talking about before was Twisted Pixel. That was the one that they acquired. And then
Twisted Pixel. Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Explosion Man and Missplosion Man, Connect stuff like that, So yeah, that was the studio. But that was a weird question. Although I kind of saw a little bit of an angle of behind that, but I get why you would kind of not a fan of that.
Because you know what, I want serious answers. It's like again that Arby's reference, and somebody comes in and says, "Hey, I'm the deputy inspector for all of the food establishments in this county, and I want to know when the fuck are you bringing out Will's roast beef sandwich?" You know what I'm saying? Like, I want questions like that, And I get that there's a warm up period, but Will, I appreciate it so much, man. I don't know about you. I got hives listening to that Fortune magazine interview. Like that guy came out the gate out for blood. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that was a good interview. I liked how how upfront he was.
Yeah,
Definitely more in your face. Not like questions. He actually kind of he kind of confronted him with stuff that needed to be said. So
absolutely. Yeah,
that Fortune interview was awesome. Yeah, absolutely.
absolutely. So with that being said, we kind of got some clarity. Maybe it was just MM2K. Maybe it's just me not, having my daily dose of Metamucil, and I never knew this. But Matt Booty is officially in charge of all first party. Now, you probably already knew that, right? So for those of you that didn't know that, I just wanted to put that out there. But before this interview, were you aware of that too, Will?
Yeah. So I remember the transition. They were saying he's the new head of first party. I actually remembered him from far back as like when they were doing the Xbox One launch. He was the guy that they interviewed. Talking about do you know what is the story behind the DRM and stuff like that. Even he gave like a different answer. So that I kind of when he first hired, I was kind of a little skeptical. I was like, do we really want this guy? But I mean, so far so good. He's kind of been behind stuff like the Double Fine acquisition, the Obsidian. I mean, at least I assume. Maybe it was a joint effort between Phil and him.
Yep.
I mean, very possible. But so far, I mean, he's done a pretty good moves. So
let me ask you a question. The guy that runs Double Fine, I don't know why his name loses me. What's his name?
Tim Schafer.
Tim Schafer. I knew that. It was on for some reason. I just thought that wasn't his name. Tim. Well, you know what? I was gonna say. I think that Tim Schafer, if it wasn't for Matt Booty's intervention, wouldn't have been comfortable in being absorbed. But I don't think Double Fine was in the most secure space. And Microsoft coming to them, he probably would have, if Satan would have offered him the deal, he probably would have took it. I don't know. But
yeah, that was definitely kind of fostered by Matt Booty, because in the interview with Game Informer, he definitely mentioned that he was tossing emails back and forth with Tim Schafer, and that was definitely a good olive branch, because like you said, they were doing pretty they're a little dicey there, which was interesting because they were much more of a Sony support, like they supported Sony sought them out to put out exclusives like Day of the Tentacle and there's a bunch of other games, especially even Psychonauts had a release as well on PS4. The first Psychonauts.
Yep.
So that was an interesting acquisition because we had a publisher slash studio a studio that was doing more PlayStation work before, similar to a Compulsion. They seemed like more because they did do their first game on the PlayStation first. What was it called? Forgot the name of it, but yeah. So that was a good acquisition, and I actually think even they might have taken place of Twisted Pixel, because not Twisted Pixel. I'm sorry. What's the other one that they Press Play?
Yeah. Okay.
Because Press Play had a lot of ideas, and I felt like Press Play had almost like a Double Fine type of environment.
Mm-hmm.
They put out a lot of different quirky games and stuff like that. So I feel like this is a very, very natural acquisition for them, and it actually works really well. So the only thing now is hopefully they'll put out all the games that they put on PlayStation onto the Xbox, so they can kind of have all their IPs in that one spot as well. So
Gotcha.
Xbox people get get exposed to their catalog of IP.
Yeah. So more in tune to some of the bigger hitters during that interview, because I think there were really two main questions there. First one dealing with studio acquisitions. So I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but you can help me out wherever there's any gap in me translating what was said in the interview. So as far as studio acquisitions are concerned, he pretty much said, not looking for 90-hour AAA games out of these studio acquisitions. Rather, well-crafted, as close to AAA production as can be scoped, well to be done by smaller. I don't know what the hell I meant by that, but so games close to AAA production that could be done well by smaller studios. So and I took that as in flood, particularly Game Pass with AA content. And does this maybe include the Initiative as well? What are your thoughts on that altogether?
Yeah, so this part of the interview caught my ear because I had to rewind it several times. I wasn't sure if I thing. I was like, was he talking about multiple projects, or was he, or
Yeah.
is this like a mandate or something? But I think what it was is the Ninja Theory's kind of Fight to Survive kind of making game schedule just fits within Microsoft's business plans for for putting out games at a quicker pace. So it just kind of lined up. But I don't think this necessarily means that Ninja Theory can't make a AAA game. I think this is more like, we like that model, that Fight to Survive model, and we want to use that towards our Game Pass initiative, and hopefully that'll give us more games throughout the year. And we're not necessarily limiting Ninja Theory's output. We're just facilitating whatever they put out. So with the stuff with Bleeding Edge, that's a good example of it, because that's a game that otherwise might have been hard to put out by themselves, but they've been doing that anyway. So that was an interesting reveal for E3, as far as I know people didn't like that because it's a multiplayer game. But
yeah, I mean, so my question in response to that would be, it sounds like to me that they do want to flood Game Pass with a lot of AA content. Okay. And then we do have some studios that they've acquired that are really well to do with AA content, which one is Obsidian. The other one is Ninja Theory. Ninja Theory does have pedigree with AAA games too, right?
Yeah. It's Slave, Devil May Cry.
They definitely, Enslaved, Devil May Cry. Would you consider Heavenly Sword a AAA?
Oh, AAA? Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely a AAA.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, with that being said, I mean, his response did concern me, but what would you think would be a good turnaround for maybe a studio like Obsidian or Ninja Theory more than all the other ones? Except for the initiative really ain't an acquisition if they're putting an initiative together. But how often would you feel comfortable with those two making AAA content?
For Ninja Theory and Obsidian, I'll be pretty confident. I mean, they would have to, most likely they'll put out the smaller games first and kind of build up to the big one.
Gotcha. Okay.
So because Obsidian, they've also done AAA games. They've done Fallout New Vegas. They've done even games like Alpha Protocol, or like they're kind of middle AA, but it's still it's a good game. And it's interesting because they have so many studios that can put out a lot of content. Like we just talked about Double Fine, they put out a lot of games like in a short amount of time. And same thing with Obsidian. They can put out games because they have different little studios, and Ninja Theory as well. So they have quite a good amount of studios that can put out a certain amount of games throughout the year. And they don't really have to worry about the AAA stuff, because within those studios they can also put out AAA games if they want to. Hopefully that's the case, because I do want to see like kind of Ninja Theory's AAA-ish take on like an IP. Hard to say whether we'll see it, but it would be nice to see that within those studios, on top of the initiative, like you said, Playground and all those other studios putting out AAA content.
Yeah. That did concern me though. I'm not gonna
I see where your concern is though.
my RIP Xbox was starting to ooze out of me when I heard that. I said, oh no. I said, we're going to talk a little bit later about the Xbox approach altogether and how much content, but I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
I know where you're going. Sorry. I mean, I know where you're going. It does kind of raise a bit of a red flag if you think if they put out, if the way he says it, it looks like they're just putting out Game Pass fodder, and that's the fear, right? Like,
but no, I mean, you perfectly outlined why a counter narrative to my thought process, which I think makes a lot of sense. See, again, everybody, this is not RP. That's why Will's here, to keep me contained, okay? To keep the rage contained. All right. So with that being said, let's see here. He stated that Halo, Gears, and Forza were designed. Okay, so this is a little bit different. This is in reference to triple A, or no, not triple A content, but their third party development approach. And I know this is something that you have a lot of thought and a lot of, how can I say, concern about. Would that be a right way to categorize it?
Yeah, I mean they do have. Let me see. So yeah, so I'm looking at their outline here. Yeah, so it does, it did concern me that they were at some point thinking about putting their big franchises on other systems.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of a big no-no for me. Like you have to have some sort of content that you keep to prop up the brand with. You can't just put stuff everywhere and become just a third party. That doesn't really work with your strategy of wanting to maintain a brand. Like especially particular Xbox, and that's a brand we picked up on through the console. It wasn't through an app. It wasn't through a service.
Mm-hmm.
It was basically a console that put out first party games, and they also had a lot of good second to third party support from Japanese developers. Their own in-house I don't want to say in-house for the OG, but they did have studios like Bungie making games for them and stuff like that. So yeah, it did kind of concern me when even when he said something like that in a previous interview.
Mm-hmm.
So with this one, it was like slightly reassuring,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it was it's never out of the question. So
Yeah.
what I what I kind of had in my mind.
And I think, and look, that part of it, even though, look, and I want to highlight this because that part of what Will just said, again, is spot on. Me and Will worked together to put together the structure of the things that we were going to cover. But as far as our individual opinions about certain things, besides what we've talked about in the past, previous months, you know what I'm saying? We never discussed this. And this is brand new. This just happened to, I think the interview was actually yesterday, but we just all got a lot of us today, right?
Yeah.
And the reason why I wanted to highlight that is because we have a lot of people in the Xbox community that took that statement from Matt Booty in that interview as to say that games like Halo, Gears, and Forza would never, outside of PC, would never go to another platform. I'll tell you my opinion, and you let me know if you agree, and if not, why. Mm-hmm. I don't take that I'm not saying it's for sure, it's a given that's going to happen, but I don't think that statement sealed the deal that it would never happen. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. They didn't quite shut the door so so cleanly.
Yes.
It's odd. I guess they're kind of leaving a little bit of room for them in just in case that happens to happen.
Absolutely.
So that maybe that's like a kind of like a Sega thing down the line, like put a Sonic on Nintendo's consoles and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I agree with you. It's not quite a shut case, which like I said, it's a little concerning. Because it almost seems like they have like an out there, like a safety net.
Yeah, like an out clause. Yeah, kind of like when we talked about, as far as the third party development or not the third, now their first party, the studios that they acquired. It's very interesting, as we talked about earlier, that it seems like that they structured all those deals with out clauses, right?
Right. Yeah.
The way that Matt Booty broke it down. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No worries. So. Also, it seems like when they were saying like we put a certain game on other consoles, if it makes sense. Mm-hmm. The Outer World seems like one of those games that since we put it already on PS4 and Switch, we don't have a huge problem putting a sequel on there as well.
Absolutely.
Whereas like a Halo or like a Recore, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
Might not be so
Yeah, it's not going to be.
Yeah, it's not as facilitating as putting it on another console because it wasn't originated there. It didn't originate there, or should I say it didn't start there. Yeah. So yeah, it would make more sense to even like Minecraft Dungeons. That's another one that's like it does make sense to put it on other consoles because Minecraft is more of a what do you call it, like a industry wide kind of brand. It's not just for one console. So I can see where they would go with that, but hopefully they don't go crazy with it. It's like with every other franchise.
Yeah, I totally agree. And and to add to that, hold on. I might have to mute my Nightbot. One White Kong, I deeply apologize because I don't know why this damn thing is going crazy. It's just like warning everybody. Hold on. Let me see view.
Yeah, let's get White Kong back.
Yeah, go to channel.
Good, sir.
All right, view deleted. Why is this? It says Xbox not sending their best. I think it's responding to all caps.
Yeah, I think that might be it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, golly, guys, just be careful of putting things in all caps. I don't want to delete this thing because it's gonna throw the chat off and throw the stream off or whatever. Yeah, it says stop spamming caps. I'm sorry, guys. You know what I'm saying? So just be careful with doing all caps. I'm sorry, One White Kong. I'll fix that. I'll fix that later. You guys understand that I'm an old geezer, right? I'm like Gargamel from the Smurfs. I have no idea what the hell I'm doing here. All right. So and I'll take care of that. So with that being said, all right. So Outer Worlds 2 being exclusive to Xbox, or any game being exclusive to Xbox, I don't think it's a given. And my basic point in highlighting this is I don't think that what Matt Booty said takes the possibility of that off the table, for the simple fact that Matt Booty just not too long ago, and I'm just going to read this directly from the Eurogamer interview that he infamously did. And this was June 11th. So he was responding to a question about taking Fable out of the showcase, right? And I'm not going to read everything. I'm just going to go to the prevalent points. So he says, at the same time, we're also going to bring that game to consoles. He's talking about the overall approach to games in totality. Why? Because people want to play it on Xbox, and we'll figure out a way to make it work. So platforms, even competing ones, down to us following the players and seeing if they want that content. So the interviewer responds to Matt Booty and says, so you're saying that if there's enough Halo fans who own a PlayStation, ... Matt Booty follows up with, well, I can't speak for Sony, but I can point out that we've done work with Minecraft. We've kept it on pace. So Minecraft on Xbox and PlayStation neither lags behind each other. Our relationship with Sony as it relates to Minecraft is very healthy. It's fantastic. Nintendo is quite literally just across the street from us in Redmond, and Minecraft has done great on Switch. So with that being said, even though he anchored the point home with Minecraft, he's basically said that if it makes sense with the player base, they're going to do it. Here's the thing, though, that you got to bring it all home and get your thoughts on this, Will. It doesn't make sense for the player base because Sony won't give them access at that level with their play. Sony don't want to see a Halo on the PlayStation, not because they got something against Halo, not because they don't like Master Chief's design and shit. They don't want to see something big like Halo because they know Halo will be a big draw, meaning that would be more Xbox Live accounts that people would have to sign into. And Sony is going into next gen is also going to be using PlayStation Now or PlayStation Plus accounts as a litmus to show success. So they're not going to help out the enemy in their minds. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I think what he says there is vague. What he said in the interview in Game Informer is vague. And that's why I say don't jump out the window, people, to say that Matt Booty definitively said that the big ticket games aren't coming to other platforms. Your thoughts on that, Will?
Yeah, that was interesting. He kind of walk that back a little bit,
Yeah.
I don't know if it was because of backlash after that, saying that.
Mm-hmm.
Very possible, but it's one of those things where it just kind of leaves you open to thinking like, oh, so what is their angle here? Like
exactly, like what are you trying to say here? And then again, and in a situation like this where there's pressure on you, again, I can tell you as one who's had to do it himself for a Fortune 500 company. Confusion is a good thing. And we got a new follower. Thank you, Mr. Mr. Kyle6875 for following the channel on Mixer. Appreciate it, man. You know
thanks,
what I'm saying?
Mr. Kyle. Appreciate it, man. Thanks for stopping by and checking us out, and thanks for the follow. Definitely follow Moss. Good guy, man.
I appreciate it. With that said, okay, y'all let me know if that, because I will ban this damn bot. I'm just making sure, man. The bot is supposed to serve a purpose and make things easier, and if the bot is making things crazier, I will ban the damn bot. With that said, so that's why I thought that. So, overall, interesting interview. I think if you look at it, it's positive, not because he made some earth-shattering news, but again, you see a walk back a little bit, right, Will?
You do. Yeah, you do. It's I guess maybe it could be like, the internet's kind of getting to them because they're saying a lot of things out of turn, or just saying wild stuff that you just wouldn't think. Even during the Fortune interview, the interviewer was like, oh, I couldn't imagine, so it was crazy just seeing Sony and Microsoft shake hands, So even that's still resonating within the industry, just the collaborations and stuff like that. So I think people are still weirded out by that, and they're not quite comfortable with it yet.
Yeah.
So, and it does fit within Microsoft's secret strategy of wanting to be like a facilitator of all things technology to the gaming industry, which we'll talk about in a bit. But it's definitely something that keeps you thinking, like, I hope this isn't a sign of something bad.
With that being said, I want real quick, Bruce Leroy in a free messaging app, he says, I don't take Phil's word on nothing until I actually see what he's talking about in my hands. Bruce Leroy, you have your MM2K manifesto, I see, and I appreciate that.
Bruce Leroy's a wise man.
You're a wise man.
He takes nothing at face value. He just he will see. He believes it when he sees it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a proven track record, and there's a reason why. I think that they're doing a backtrack along with just the internet. Like, again, Phil is a very charming guy. I'm not trying to be mean here. People that are listening, my Xbox brethren, I'm not trying to be mean here. Phil is a charming guy, and he knows it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I think he uses some of that innocent charm to not show clarity on certain things, but still make you okay with that, right? Have you walk away and say, well, this guy has good intentions. And I'm not saying he has the most evil intentions, but I don't think he has matching intentions, or he had matching intentions, because again, we're seeing a walk back of stuff, right? I don't think he had matching intentions with maybe me and even a Will with a lot of his strategy, but he wanted to keep things vague so he wouldn't get hit hard. And I don't think that charm is working anymore. The charm offensive is worn off. And again, I think now they're realizing that they're going to have to do things differently.
Yeah, I think people are seeing through the facade of, they're seeing the cracks in the armor, of Phil Spencer. I like the guy. He's a very nice guy.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
He does do stuff that he sets out to do, but it takes a long time to do it. And there's always a caveat to it, so always, be very careful with what he says. Pick apart what he says, and just don't completely buy into what he's saying, because some of it's stuff that maybe supposed to line up with Nadella's vision. That's not really. He's just going from a place of of a corporate person, not necessarily a gamer.
Absolutely, wholeheartedly agree. So with that being said, let's transition this into so people can understand again that this is beyond some RIP Xbox, or we're being toxic, or any of that demagoguery. I don't like it, because like I said, as the Arby's, I call it the Arby's doctrine. I'm taking that, and hopefully Arby's doesn't sue me. But the Arby's doctrine, I mean, in any other field, in any other products, goods, and services, if something like that were to happen, somebody's going to band together, only because of decency, or not because of decency, just of self-interest, to say, shit, if you do this to him, you might do this to me. Just so people understand, let's talk a little bit about our background and what we understand of the Xbox strategy first and foremost. So let me ask you just the most general of all questions. What made you originally pick up an Xbox, Will?
So the good question. What got me into Xbox is, interestingly enough, my cousin, through the first Halo. At first I thought it was like an overrated game. I was like, what's the big deal with this? But then I started playing it, and I got hooked with it. Then Halo 2, as soon as it was like a big phenomenon, and I got swept up in it. And even though I didn't have broadband or multiplayer at the time, it was a huge game for them. And Halo was like the number one thing that brought me to the brand, because it was not because I know GoldenEye was a precursor to it as far as introducing more like first person shooters into console gaming. But Halo did it really well, and it had a lore to it, and it was just the style of it. It just got me into Xbox, and as well as all the other stuff was on Otogi, Jet Set Radio Future, stuff that Sega brought to the Dreamcast. They had partnered with Microsoft on the OG Xbox to bring more of those types of games to there, and you could tell that Xbox was really trying to get the hardcore gamer at the time, especially with the diverse portfolio. They had a lot of crazy exclusives. They had Ninja Gaiden, like I said, the Sega stuff, From Software stuff like Otogi, lots of awesome games. Like even OG people would love to talk about. And yeah, so that's one of the main things that got me into it. Even though I was more of a GameCube / PS2 guy at the time, I didn't play my Xbox as much, but I did appreciate what they brought to the table, and I saw their passion towards gaming. Project Gotham Racing as well. That's another franchise that was awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, just the general. I know people were very skeptical of Microsoft at the time because they're the new kid on the block, but they had a lot of good games, so that's what kind of brought me to them. Specifically Halo, though. Halo was a big game for me.
My path was a little bit different, and that's very interesting, because even though paths are usually different and what the entry point was, because really Xbox came out of nowhere. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Xbox came out of nowhere. Even though everybody's entry point was a little bit different, I think the commonality of it was it came out of nowhere. PlayStation destroyed all of the previous, title holders, the Segas, the Nintendos, you know what I'm saying? It's like, what the hell is this thing? But when you got your hands on it, you were like, holy shit.
Yeah, it was ahead of its time. It had at the internal HD. I mean, I know it wasn't the first to do it maybe, but it had internal hard drive. They had the music on there, which is awesome. You could play games while you're playing music. The operating system was really robust at the time. You could use memory cards if you wanted to. Lots of even the broadband capability of the online was awesome. Even though I didn't get to play with it, because I was a dumb poor kid back in the day. But
yeah, absolutely, yeah. I wasn't one of the beta beta testers for the broadband or none of that stuff. I you know what, I was and big ups to the homie Porter Rock with his PlayStation propaganda, right?
Yeah, I talked to Porter Rock on Xbox Live actually. Just
do you? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
cool.
It was back. It was a couple, maybe a year ago, so maybe. But
okay.
It's good dude. I like Porter.
Yeah, no, Porter Rock's a good dude. Again, I think what a lot of people do is they feel, some people, we use the term, Will, your favorite piece of plastic, but I think what it boils down to is people sometimes feel insulted when you insult their choices, right? Right. What was behind their choice? Are you an idiot? Is I guess the emotion that fills up behind that, and it's not so much that, it's just a lot. To be frank, a lot of it is shit talking. But I think what a lot of people don't understand is that there is an audience for, hey, we want to cut up and we want to do a lot of shit talking, and I'm gonna give you, I don't know, I know this sounds cheesy, I'm gonna give you a wedgie and give you a noogie, you know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of that happens online, and a lot of it is just like boy room banter, where a lot of people say, oh, that's so horrible, you're messing up his hair giving him that noogie, I don't want anything to do with that. and choices are choices. If you don't like it, that's fine. But the reason why I'm bringing that and why I got this long-winded explanation is, I'll end it with this. The Porter Rocks or the next gen 720s or even the MM2Ks that you see online, that's not me. Well, maybe it is, but it's not me. It's not those guys all the time. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of it is, again, we're out here, we're emphatically arguing our points, and that's why you see a lot of the propaganda or the dramatization that's out there. With that being said, Porter Rock's a good guy, and I think what it is he's just staunch on single player experiences, and I was like that too, Will. I was like that too. So my earlier introduction into the Xbox community had nothing to do with Broadband. I was like you. What brought me to it was I had all three systems. I had the GameCube, the PlayStation 2, and I had the original Xbox. Didn't like the original Xbox at first because I didn't like its controller layout. I didn't like the Duke. The Duke drove me crazy.
It was pretty big, man. It was a handful.
And that the white and black button where it was positioned, I said, holy shit, this is horrible,
Yeah, it was awkwardly put there. It wasn't until the S when they had a better controller.
Exactly, yeah. So time goes on, right? Most of my gaming, because I wasn't big on the PlayStation 2 either, all like that. I had it, I played it, but I mainly played it for RPGs and fighters, right? Oddly enough, most of my time was on the GameCube. I played my multiplats on the GameCube, but here's what happened. And then here goes another thing. I hated first-person shooters. I was so much of an old fogey, Will, I thought to myself, the concept of a first-person shooter is so stupid. You're cutting off the vast majority of what you see on the screen, and gaming is not about that. Gaming is fantasy. You should be able to see everything. All this realism and that you're bringing is so stupid. That's how I thought back then, right?
Well, that's probably the way you felt until you played Metroid Prime, right? And
Metroid Prime and Ghost. See, he been following the manifesto. Metroid Prime and Ghost Recon. That was on GameCube. That changed my perspective, and I fell in love with the first person shooter with those two games. Here's the problem. As multi-plat games began to evolve across all three platforms, they became more intricate in the controls that they had, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the GameCube, with its lack of the analog push buttons and the L2 and the R2, made it more challenging to play these more intricate games because they lacked that functionality.
Yeah, so, it wasn't really. It was almost like a jack of all trades, master of none controller.
Exactly.
Yeah, the weird little yellow nub to it. I mean, I loved my GameCube. I got it at launch. I got it with Wave Race, Blue Storm, one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
I was a big Nintendo guy back in the day, and I kind of gave PlayStation the side eye because it was, destroyed the Dreamcast. But I did like my PS2 quite a lot. I got it for Devil May Cry at the time. But I had all three consoles as well, and the first person shooters they were kind of rough back in the day. It was kind of one of the more the entry points of the first person shooter console. With with Halo and Metroid Prime and, like you said, Ghost Recon. So those are kind of I don't want to say a rough start because they were great games, but it was just like the beginning of the first person shooter being more prominent on consoles.
Absolutely. And one of my favorite games on the GameCube was Baiting Kaitos. It was.
I remember that. Yeah,
I would love to have that game remastered or remade. So Xbox, if you're listening, you know what I'm saying. I think it was Baiting Kaitos was made from a Korean studio, I think. Or am I?
Could be. Yeah, I remember it had pre-rendered backgrounds and like 3D on top of it. Yeah, it was almost like a Resident Evil.
Yeah, that shit was awesome. Interesting. Man. Yeah, very very challenging game. You know what I'm saying? And it was a GameCube exclusive, and it's been lost in the nether regions. But I love that game. But that's what kept me on the system. And as the S controller came out, as you said, then I started to become more interested in the Xbox, because I'm like, holy shit, there's these first person shooters that the system's getting flooded with. I'm loving these things now, and there's these Western developed games that finally are starting to make its mark. That's really starting to shine and show its luster. So I was like, wow, I was really getting into them. The Jade Empires, the what do you call that? Armed and Dangerous, and
Armed and Dangerous, yeah,
and then just the risks that they were taking. It wasn't and again, nothing. And then I'm not trying to be a nativist here or talk about a particular region, but you guys. I've been gaming for 30 plus years. The Japanese developed games, the style was starting to get a little bit repetitive to me, right? Mm-hmm. So the nuance of the Western developed games, the the Elder Scrolls, Oblivions, and all that shit, that was new to me, So I was starting to definitely appreciate that. So that's what brought me to the system.
Yeah, that's cool. And it looked like they were kind of bringing the PC experience to the console.
Exactly,
as well.
yes.
Yeah.
And that was one of the biggest problems, Will, was the PC experiences that back then it was, that was like still right before Steam, and Steam had its legs. So the console experience wasn't, the PC experience wasn't simplified, which still the PC experience ain't fully simplified yet, but it wasn't as simplified as we know now. It was still very complicated. You know what I mean? So
yeah, it was an interesting fusion of like PC style plus Japanese games, like Mr. Righteous Fish mentioned. We had a lot of Japanese games.
Exactly.
Back in the day.
That's all we had. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a good mix. It was like between the OG Xbox and like the 360, that was the Xbox at its most purest, because you had all types of games. No, Japanese games are excluded. No just first person shooters. No dude bros. It was everything.
It was very diverse. Yes.
Yeah, that's a problem that is facing today, which they're trying to fix little by little. So that's unfortunately that's what happened, but. That was really good. Those two eras were really good for Microsoft's Xbox. That was, that's why people look fondly on it so much.
Absolutely. So because I talk about Mass Effect, BioShock, I say that ad nauseum, right?
Those great games, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And you take the implementation and the just out of nowhereness of the original Xbox, and you fast forward to the 360, and it's not so much that when you look at the numbers, the 360 didn't wallop the PlayStation. It had a more traumatic perceptive effect. And what I mean by that is, the simple fact that with the sixth generation, which was the PlayStation 2 era, the PlayStation 2 had a 76% market share out of 3 consoles, right?
Yeah, it was insane.
You bring that down to where it was like neck and neck, and where even though the Xbox 360 still outdid it in software, the furthest gap was only 8 million in consoles, but still the fact that this nobody, you know what I'm saying, with all of his Western developed games, even the playing field when tried and true systems or console makers like Sega and Nintendo fell so easily to PlayStation, it was more of a traumatic effect than anything. Would you agree?
Yeah, it was an interesting time. It was when Sony was kind of falling flat with their problems, and then Nintendo was going very casual with the Wii. So it was almost a perfect time to be like an in-between console. You could play your sports games, check out those cool launch games like, was it King Kong and the boxing games, which looked awesome at the time. Like, the boxing games just blew me out of the water. So I was like, wow, very impressive tech. And so, yeah, the 360 was definitely a good combatant towards the PlayStation. And it did very well, especially with Peter Moore at the helm. Up until, when he left, that's when kind of things went downhill, unfortunately, because you had a lot of Japanese support then as well.
Oh, yeah. Peter Moore, man. I shout out to Gamertag Radio.
Yeah. Gamertag Radio
to Danny Pena and Paris Lilly, and even Pete Toledo, even though he's I think he's migrated and he's working out of the country now. Big ups all of them. They had a 20th year anniversary Dreamcast conversation where Danny called up Peter Moore, called him up on the phone, and just started talking to him. And they were reminiscing on the Dreamcast. And Peter Moore just talked about his experience with Xbox and, how he was a sports manager or something. He had nothing. He knew nothing about video games, and how that transitioned into him being a VP for Adidas, and then transferred to Sega, and then he transferred into taking charge of. Peter Moore started as a health teacher. He was a health teacher. Yeah.
Yeah, he had a crazy career path, man.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. So it's just passion. It's passion that drives everything, right? Passion will turn coal into a diamond, man. You know what I mean? Yeah. And with that being said, that passion that showed that the mighty PlayStation did have a weakness. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That passion seemed to fade away. So now we transition into the point of this podcast. Strategy. How did we get here, Will? How did we get here? Let's talk a little. Where actually, what is here? Where are we at, Will? Where do you see us right now?
Yeah, so we're at a weird kind of crossroads area. It's like a lot of people who are like 360 fans. A lot of them have moved on to PlayStation, PC. Switch, a lot of different places, and it's unfortunate that this has happened because they've lost that means that they've lost just to put it bluntly, the hardcore. They're just slowly losing them, which really sucks because it's eroding their good name, and it's not something I want to see happen to such a good, legacy of a brand. So, so that's kind of where we're at now. I mean, it's unfortunate, and I kind of hope they, have stuff planned to fix that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I did have a whole thing here. I'm trying to look for it. It was almost a timeline of where they're. Of how they got to this place. Let me just look for it in the meantime.
Let me see here. So I'm looking at. So we started with exclusives, heavy leading on second party exclusive. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, so I'm caught up. All right, so the early strategy carried over from 360. This is what I have in my outline here. So they started with exclusives. That was a big thing as well at first. Like you said, heavy leaning on second party exclusives. That was practically their only, besides the 3 or 4 studios they had at the time of first party, they mostly leaned on second party, which was what they relied on last gen. That was a big driver of their exclusives at the time. So also they had some Japanese support, through games like Crimson Dragon. I think there was also another one through Suda51, Suiri, and I'm sorry.
Yeah,
it was the name escapes me a little bit. It was like an action adventure. So
I know. I know. Jeez.
Yeah,
I know exactly. Yeah, because when I found out it was from Suda51, I said, "Holy shit!" Because they're exclusively known for Nintendo. You know what I mean? So
and also they did some 360 as well. Yep. D4. I'm sorry,
D4. Exactly. Yeah.
That was the one. So they did have some Japanese support, which was cool at the time. They announced games early. They did do that. 2014 was an infamous example of them announcing games too early. Was Phantom Dust, Scalebound, Crackdown. The trifecta there. Even Fable Legends was announced. I think it was Gamescom. It was a weird Gamescom because they didn't have a conference. They were just kind of like sitting on like a circle of people, and then Phil Harrison was on there. I think that's when they announced Rise of the Tomb Raider as well.
Yeah.
As an exclusive. So that was an interesting time. And then also they fed into the whole games as a service, with Fable and various other games, which I think Phil Harrison had a huge hand behind.
Yeah.
I think that was he was a big driver behind that, which I think he was also behind the decline of the brand as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Hey, look, for lack of a better term, I've been capping, making excuses for Stadia a lot, right? Saying, Stadia is this, that. And I think under any gaming executive, I think it will be a no-brainer that this thing is going to see success because of the pedigree of the company, because of the access that they have, because of the technology that's behind it. That it may start off slow, but it'll slowly but surely creep up and become a prominent force within gaming. The only thing that fourth wall, right, that keeps me away from thinking like that, Will, is Phil Harrison.
Yeah, people have always talked about his double agent status.
Yeah,
because he came from Sony originally, and he came to Xbox, and now he's Stadia. So people think he's kind of sabotaging everything behind the scenes.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's very interesting. Yeah, I never quite liked him as far as just his strategy with the Xbox. So yeah, that was kind of a downer during the time. So the other strategies early on is they were very deadline focused.
Mm-hmm.
So we got Halo 5 coming out.
Yep.
Halo Gears 4 campaign.
Yep.
Buy it yearly for. So the reason I mention those is because each of these had shortcomings of some sort.
Yeah.
Halo 5 had the story issue. Lots of rewrites and a lot of issues there. Gears 4, great game, but it had a lot of interesting things going on in the background, like a lot of stuff like the tower, not the tower, the horde mode level things that
exactly.
Going on, it was obvious that
it was very safe.
Yeah, you could tell that they kind of had to rush the development of that one and put it out. I mean, I have to say though, that was a very, very quick turnaround on that game because Coalition had formed like, there was called Black Tusk, right? Black
Tusk, and then the advent of Rod.
Then they acquired the rights of Gears, and then they put out the game like really quick. Yeah. So I'll give them that. They put it out really, and then for the Forza games, they were good, but they had always features cut out, or like they kind of cranked them out a little too quickly, and we never got support for them ongoing like we did with 7 now, and even 6 and Horizon. Horizon usually gets really good support, but the unfortunate thing was Forza is they kept cranking them out, and they just kind of didn't support them aside from like car packs, and tracks were kind of cut, and the same issues they're doing now. But I mean with regards to 7, like there's not that many tracks that I would have liked as much as I would like. But yeah, so that was also an issue, the deadline focus. And also the indie stuff was a big problem back in the day. It was not as good as it is now as far as support from them. So that was the early Xbox strategy.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which you see how that turned out.
I wish I could visually, but I'm again I'm an old folk, and I didn't get that part of the stream setup. But this is a very great outline. You know what we'll do, Will? Which I think will be awesome, because again, this is a report card. We'll take this and maybe plop it into a shareable document. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Thank you.
We'll do that and connect it and get people to look at it, because this thing is wonderful. I mean, I think it's spot on. So with all that being said, what do you think is the biggest takeaway from their strategy early on, the carryover from the 360 era? If you had to put a grade, or maybe not that, but if you had to put a phrase to it, what would be the best way to describe that strategy early on?
It's like 360. It was almost like a mix of the 360 and like Connect. It was pretty much those two things.
So maybe Originu. Maybe an
original,
an original strategy,
Yeah, the Connect was a big issue though. That was the biggest
absolutely
albatross for them.
Yeah.
And they were having a lot of the indie thing, the Japanese support, a lot of stuff getting away from them, unfortunately, at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But the good thing at the time was that they did value exclusives. They also had a lot of ideas and ambition, specifically bringing new IPs in from like Sunset Overdrive. A lot of studios were actually started up but never panned out.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like Lift London, like we talked earlier before pre-show, Moss. Lift London, Microsoft Victoria, which is I think it was either UK or Canadian studio. So a lot of ambition, and a lot of focus on Connect plus some 360 stuff, success mixed in, or should I say not success, or kind of a mentality,
Yeah, exactly.
like
Yeah.
like exclusives and stuff like that.
There was definitely residual from that.
Exactly. Yeah. So which brings us to the middle, which I guess
But before, I'm sorry not to
yeah,
cut you.
yeah. Go ahead. No. Go ahead.
We got another follower on Mixer. Thank you very much. Sinatno1223 is following the channel. And let me just say this real quick, not to go off the beaten path too much or for too long, but I just want to make everybody aware that you may not be aware. I appreciate all of the support, everybody following. We're getting to the nitty gritty here. I want to thank Will so much, and for my Mixer followers, there will be added benefits to you joining as well. That's why I wanted to simulcast here. We are working on a new product that's going to be exclusive to Mixer as far as game. It's all game streams. We will, do simulcast of YouTube/Mixer content. My Twitch content will be exclusive. Again, we're trying to have some saturation everywhere, but we are going to start some new streams either next week or the week following. So definitely spread the word because we are coming to Mixer in a major way. But I'm sorry, go ahead. Continue.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I guess that brings us to the middle of, which is I guess 2014, 15, 16, or maybe a little after 17.
Yeah.
So this is when I started playing around with the PC stuff. So Play Anywhere, which is there's a PC initiative. Less emphasis on exclusives, to the point of downplaying the value of them.
Mm-hmm.
Some Japanese support. We did see the scale bound thing, of course. Mixed things here and there.
Yep.
That's kind of all I have for the middle, unfortunately, because it starts to get more interesting down the road.
Yeah. Before we transition to that, I mean, yeah, there's less to dissect here, but that's purposeful because if we play the same game, with this section, the word that comes to my mind is transition. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So because there's a transition, there's a pivot, there's less movement. You know what I mean? And that's where you started to hear some grumblings. To put context to this, this is when you started to see people like Next Gen 720 start to grow, right?
Yeah. Yeah, Next Gen channel really grew. Definitely. I love his stuff, and he definitely has his ear to the ground. He knows,
Mm-hmm.
he knew what was going on at the time. He's a smart guy. Why people were, kind of questioning him at the time. And this was a time also when, Crap Gamer and Phil Spencer had that little falling out with Quantum Break and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Because that went to PC. And, and it's also a time where the whole Terry Myerson thing was brought up. Yeah, because apparently the Windows was supposed to be, well, I should say this. So the Xbox was supposed to kind of prop up Windows.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So and a lot about that, Miles.
Yeah, absolutely. That's interesting because we have short-term memories. So it's great that you brought that up and further elaborate any way that you can. For those that may not understand.
Yeah, so Terry Myerson at the time was he was in charge, I believe, of the devices division. I think it was what was it, gaming devices? Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Xbox was under that. And the belief was that he didn't like gaming. I mean, it's probably true.
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted to have gaming prop up Windows so that Windows could sell more, because Windows is at a weird spot now. They're not really huge as enterprise. I mean, they are, but it's not. They're not really selling anything extra besides maybe an app or two or something.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, and they're not quite relying as much. I mean, they do rely on Windows Suite, like Word and Access and stuff like that. They do sell that. But the operating system itself is still sold like via business to business, or like if you have it on the PC itself when you purchase it, so you're not really getting a lot of returns on on that. So you need something to bring people in, have an ongoing revenue stream, which the gaming would definitely be part of. That's why we got the window. Yeah, we got the Windows Store because of that. Unfortunately, but apparently they're working on that. So that's one of the things that was big at the time, and and this is also a time where through 2017, it was a huge year for Xbox as far as just bad news.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it was just. I mean, I think again, I don't know about you, Will. I subscribe to earlier on that media bias was definitely an ingredient in a lot of things. But again, the way I took it, and again, maybe we skipped over this a little bit because it wasn't prevalent, because it talked more about the 360 and the Xbox, the original Xbox generation. But I think it came to fruition this one. A lot of these reviewers, a lot of these pundits and stuff like that were out there in the community, hence why there is an Xbox Uncut. Hence why there was an MM2K at the beginning, was the simple fact that the media was just, they grew up on PlayStation, so they didn't give it a side eye like you did. They weren't they weren't tired of the Japanese developed games like I was. They love PlayStation. They grew up at a young age loving and falling in love and ready to kill over Final Fantasy VII. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, there was a little bit of a side eye that they were giving Xbox. And when they started to see this transition, they went out for the kill. I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think there was a bit too much of a heavy hand on just kind of leaning on Xbox neck at the time. They were obviously trying to get out of the hole they were in with the image issue, and a lot of channels are pretty much NeoGAF, stuff like that. They're really hating. I hate to say that, but they were just like whatever they were doing, like Sunset Overdrive. It was under the Microsoft 900p. Why Quantum Break 720p, all that stuff. So you got a message from the real Masterlin. He said, "You trash at games." Just so
I'm letting him know right now. Laugh my ass off, but I got a restraining order.
What's up, Mass?
What's up, Mass?
Yeah, good to have you. I know he's on vacation.
Yeah. He's back. He was in full effect. Yeah, I don't know if you caught that multiplayer last night.
Yeah. It was
hilarious. But go ahead. I'm sorry, Will.
Yeah, that's why I don't get myself in situations like that. Like our friend, what was his name?
Tsunami.
Tsunami.
Yeah.
So,
Tsunami.
Yeah. That was entertaining.
That was media bias at its purest.
Yeah. So there was definitely a tinge of we gotta get on Xbox. It was just like, it was a bit much. So I understand why a lot of people came out from that. Even Crap Gamer came out from his shell of being very neutral to like just going straight up. Xbox is cool. I mean, I like what was Xbox's strength at the time was that they had the games. They had the Killer Instinct, Sunset Overdrive, Quantum Break. They had a lot of stuff going for them at the time. And people didn't want to give them the chance because all the other stuff, the DRM and all the image problems that they had at the time, just on their neck. So, I mean, some of it warranted, of course. But there was also a lot of good there. A lot of potential, a lot of promise. The middle here is where it kind of goes downhill, unfortunately.
Exactly. Yeah. Hey, and as we transition to the very sad to the last part where we're at now, I do want to bring up in something that Devil Shooter said in the chat that did catch my eye. He asked me, he said, "Did you see the PlayStation 3 media MM2K?" And I responded, for those that maybe are just listening to the audio version of this, once we get it on iTunes and Radio Public. I said, absolutely, Devil Shooter. It was more, hey, Sony, what are you doing? Come on, guys, than it was Digital Foundry, Grassgate type of responses. And what I mean by that is, I remember distinctively, I used to do freelance work for this dog shit publication called New Age Faction. I only call it that because I helped create it. So and it was dog shit. But I and then I gave it to somebody, and then they had me on to still do some freelance stuff. And I remember, I would faithfully, just to report on gaming news. We did like a news report, report on what other people were reporting on and give our take on their stances on it. So I remember faithfully watching what was that show that Adam Sessler used to do with Morgan Webb?
It was G4.
G4, X something it was, and it came after.
It was X Play. X something.
X Play. It was X Play.
Yeah.
And I remember when the PlayStation 3 was not getting the traction that people expected. And what you had then is you had people like Adam Sessler and say, hey guys, we get that the system is $600, but if you please would buy the system, it's a great system on paper. The cell processor is impressive. Come on, buy it, please. You know what I'm saying? Despite that the freaking thing was $600, right? And then when the first Uncharted came out, when that flew under the radar, come on guys, you gotta play Uncharted. Come on, it was more or less like they were doing more or less of a prep rally to Sony, to where if you fast forward to this generation, it was slam Xbox. The whole Grassgate thing, that was absurd. The whole Quantum Break thing, that was absurd. So you had more absurd. And then before their game came out for any system, they graded the damn consoles. That was absurdity to me. You know what I'm saying? So there was a big difference, and the proof is in the pudding in my eyes. Thank you, Matthew. It was X-Play. Yep.
Yeah. So Double Shooter says you get mad at Digital Foundry. Their job is a tech YouTube channel. It's not so much that; it's that they kind of made the issue bigger.
They bloviated on it. Come on, the Grassgate. Come on. I mean, the way that they announced that, it made it seem like that you were getting Switch type resolution. You know what I'm saying?
Obviously, there's a clearly superior console there. That's not what we're
exactly. We're not taking that away. No, absolutely.
It's just that the problems Xbox had at the time, and even PlayStation went through this, because their cell processor and all those issues back in the day. Because I remember they did do Lens of Truth, all that stuff on the internet. They used to compare little textures and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it just kind of compounded the issue for Digital Foundry. It wasn't so much that we're hating with Digital Foundry. It's just that that just made. And then you had the media sites put grass is better on PlayStation, stuff like that.
Yeah.
We just made the issue bigger than it really was. So that's kind of what we're talking about.
I mean, if we were to do a Grassgate right now, would that drive your decision? No, it wouldn't. So, so it has to work on both sides. That's all I'm saying. So, with that said, okay, all right. So, this end strategy will help us understand what the hell is going on now.
So we're in the end game now. So all right. So they're nearly third party here. This is where we're at now.
Okay.
Exclusive is a dirty word. That's also a thing. Game Pass becomes a near critical part of their business as it turns Xbox into a service.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just running down the stuff out here in case I sound a little bit. Phil went harder on getting Japanese support, so that's a positive.
Yeah.
And indie games are actually very plentiful on the platform.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a mix of good and bad. A lot of bad because their image is also tarnished because of their low-rated games, or should I say just mediocre to average.
Yeah.
When it's not, like a Gears or something or a Forza. So their image took a big hit here, and that's because their strategy has pivoted to trying to be everywhere at once, or at least trying to do a lot of things. And trying to stick things, throwing things at a wall, see what sticks.
Big ups to BB Gatek 74 for following the channel again on Mixer. Mixer's putting y'all to shame, YouTube.
A lot of follows, man. That's good.
I appreciate it. So with that said, with the perspective on the tail end of the strategy, let me ask this. Right now, at the end of this life cycle for this generation, you have backwards compatibility. I'm just going to go through the positives, but just follow me as I bring this full circle. We have backwards compatibility.
Yep.
We have the world's strongest console. We have, as you say, indie games are flowing. We have Phil that is making a pull to bring back fan favorites, cult favorites like Phantasy Star Online. I mean, people are crying. I remember listening to podcasts, and at that announcement, people are crying that that's coming back, right?
Yeah, it was a big game back in the day on the Dreamcast. Huge game.
Which again, I'm just being over the top. People cry about everything nowadays. But with that being said, people are crying over Phantasy Star Online, and the list goes on and on and on. Game Pass, right? Game Pass. We have all this stuff, but yet Xbox has not won an NPD, or has not topped sales as in its number one region, which is the U.S. market. And the mind share seems to be getting lower and lower and lower. Why? What's going on?
Yeah, so that's kind of what's contributing to the problem, that the erosion of the fan base. So I guess this is where we're going with the so what is hurting the brand, right? This is like part that we're so this is very apparent. So this is nothing new. I'm not saying anything nobody knows yet. So their first party content is lacking in frequency and quality. So because of that, there's not much excitement around the brand, or its hardware.
Yep.
The biggest issue right now they're facing is the ongoing erosion of the consumer interest and confidence. So that's something they have to really work on right now.
Yeah.
And so let me give you an example. So Gears 5 is coming out in September, right?
Yep.
And then you have Ori 2, which is way in February. So that's a 4-month gap in between releases. That's pretty big.
Yeah.
Unless they release Bleeding Edge and Battletoads, which we don't know the dates yet.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to figure they're gonna put them in between those games, because between those months. I'm sorry. So that helps out the schedule. Hopefully that happens, but that's the type of thing that they've been having issues with. Huge gaps in their lineups of their the first party, and the actual quality of them. The 60s Metacritic stuff, I don't particularly care that much about them, because if I like State of Decay 2, I like Sea of Thieves, I like Crackdown, but that does hit their image very hard, and that's not something they need right now. And as I have here in the outline, software feeds hardware, so there's a direct correlation there. So if you have good software, people will buy your hardware. Even if you have if you're trying to attract more PC people, they'll still buy your software no matter what, because it's attractive to them. So you want to get more people on board with your brand at this point.
Let me do this real quick, because I forgot that unfortunately my people watch on Mixer don't have a means to they don't have a means to try the free messaging app. So my friends on Mixer, unfortunately, until Mixer gets it together and allows my Nightbot to take over there, here's the free messaging. Oh crap. Yeah, here's the free messaging app. All right. So if you're watching on Mixer, please go to lutz.com/mm2k, leave a message there. It'll pop up on screen, and then we'll immediately go over it and go over whatever you're discussing with us. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So another issue they're having is they're shifting the importance of the console and the core audience, should I say? So like because they're going for a wider scale initiative, where you're instead of the consoles, which are it should be your primary driver of your game business. I mean, I know they're doing PCs and stuff, more income, of course, more revenue. But your consoles are your core. You can't keep diminishing the importance of it, because that's what the model was. That's what the brand was built on. The OG Xbox is built on hardcore games. I have a list here of people responsible. You got Seamus Blackley, Ed Fries, Jay Allard, Robbie Bach, Peter Moore, and the Fortune interview was disheartening because it,
Yeah.
it just kind of showed me that they kind of, like you said, you had to be sent this before in previous podcasts, but it just seems like they gave up.
Yeah.
Which is it sucks, man. I'm like, wow, you really said that. So that's kind of why it's they're on eggshells right now, and like you could kind of tell that Phil's kind of drinking the side of Kool-Aid. So lastly, just to finish this up, just like, this is just the bad stuff, but we'll get to the good stuff.
Mhm.
So their advertising is not where it should be. They're
Mhm.
just doing Game Pass advertising, which is, like I said, it's a core. It's the service itself is great, and it's definitely what's going to drive them in the future. But they're kind of putting that before the actual game advertisements, and it's the Gears 5 thing is really weird. Like the way they're advertising that game. Although lately we've heard that they will show the campaign at Gamescom, or at least a portion of it. I'm not sure, along with the horde mode. So those are in a nutshell the problems that they're facing now.
Yeah.
That's what they have
So,
on the table.
what do you think are the more positive things that are going on with the console at this end state? What do you see are the positives?
Yeah, so they're in a really interesting spot because they are in a really big rebuilding phase.
Mm-hmm.
Their core franchises, Halo, Gears, and Forza, they're being being strengthened again mainly because they're giving them more development time. And they've taken a lot of feedback from the fans, like Halo 5, the story sucked. Can you guys fix that? Gears 5, the campaign was kind of I'm sorry, the Gears 4 campaign was a little uh formulaic, it's typical Gears. Can you guys change that up a little bit? Forza, can you guys add more tracks or make, put more drag race stuff, stuff that's like that should be in there, and they kind of omitted because they kept having to put the games out very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the kind of stuff that they're doing with their core franchises, and they're making them better. They're actually giving them the time that they other positives, you got the studio acquisitions, of course, preservation of their back catalog through the emulation, the back and pat, Game Pass. Although that's kind of a double-edged sword. I know you're
Yeah.
a little iffy
And
on
I'll
that.
explain that, but go. Yeah, I'll explain.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Mhm.
Yeah, and they've been doing a great job with the games that they do put out. They give them a lot of support, like Sea of Thieves, State of Decay 2, Horizon 4, Gears 4 even has. They still had multiplayer support up to this day. It's insane. But yeah, I mean they've definitely dedicated a lot more care into their core stuff, and their support of their games is quite good when they do release them. So we have a chat question. You guys want to address it, Moss? Is Halo 5?
Let me see here. Halo 5.
Double shooter.
Double Shooter says Halo 5 had much worse problems than the story sucked. The game splitted the Halo fan base. You know what? I'll be honest with you, Double Shooter. I'm not the biggest Halo fan, so I would hate to try to even dig into that. What are your thoughts on that, Will? But before you answer that, big up to my homie D Train 421. What's going on, brother? I gotta reach out to you. We gotta talk in the future. But I'm sorry. Go ahead, Will. What are your thoughts on what Devil Shooter put out there? It's a good point.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, yeah, the story was lackluster. But I think it's with the fan base because various things like the gameplay elements were, it was different. It was more fast paced. You had the sprint, which I don't think it was an issue so much. It was just like the design itself is so changed. And they had the lock thing, which was, it seemed like they were trying to replace Chief, even though that wasn't. What the problem with 5 was that it should haven't been called Halo 5. Should have just called Halo.
Yeah.
What do you call it? What's the Spartan team? Just the Spartan team itself, and then the Halo 5 should have been like I don't know. The problem is that they only had one Halo game, and it wasn't well received.
Mhm.
And whereas the 360 they had a lot more Halo games, and that's just due to the cause, the fact that they're redoing their engine, so they just kind of want to put their best foot forward from now on. So they didn't have much, to give the Halo fan that didn't like Halo 5, which was disappointing. But we did have Halo Wars too,
Yeah.
which was it's a good real. I know it might not be your thing, but it's a good real time strategy game, and it does fix some issues with the story. So yeah, that's the the Halo thing.
And again, I'm not the biggest Halo fan. I love Halo 3. Unpopular. I love Halo ODST. Honestly, that's my favorite Halo.
That's a great game. Yeah,
I love ODST. I mean, I loved it for. I'm a big co-op guy. Like, what really like propelled the 360 to new heights for me was Borderlands, the original Borderlands. I love the drop in, drop out co-op aspect of it, and I love the fact that it carried over to Halo games like Halo ODST. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, that was my favorite one. And the follow up on that, you know, I think, Will, that you hit it right, the nail right on the head. I don't see why, because if you look at the Halo, now this is what I do know about Halo. You know, Halo 5 was supposed to be a launch title.
Yeah, well, I think what it was, Halo 4 was supposed to be a launch.
Oh no, was a Halo 4. Yeah.
And so they pushed that ahead and they put it on the 360 instead of the one.
Yeah, it was supposed to be a launch, and then there was some issues with what Donnie D wanted to do with the game. So they no. You know what? They pushed Halo 4 ahead, and they wanted this big crazy story with Halo 5. So, and Donnie D wanted it, and it wasn't ready at launch, so they pushed it back, and it ended up becoming this Locke versus Chief thing after Donnie D, left. You know what I'm saying? So, I caught that courtesy of Podcast Unfiltered, which is an
Unfiltered. That was a great podcast.
That was actually a great one. So if you haven't caught that one, check it out.
It was between Ryan McCaffrey and Bonnie Ross. That
exactly.
Was very revealing, very interesting. Definitely check that out if you want to see why the Halo franchise went the way it went.
Absolutely. And again, we talk about Donnie D, but I think Donnie D is used more like as a litmus. Well, for me, he is. Donnie D does not make my final cut of Dream Team Xbox executives. I'm sorry, you know what I mean. But I think we use Donnie D as a litmus to where we could say maybe in when Xbox was a little bit more competitive in their worser state with still the competitive spirit, they still presented an overall better or more attractive product to the Xbox browser, and it's being shown. I think numbers don't lie, Will. I mean, I get it. Game Pass is a phenomenal deal. Backwards compatibility, great. That's fantastic. But when you don't have the content to really boost it up, I use this analogy all the time, and I'll use it again for the millionth time. It's like delivering cold, uncooked pizza in a jetpack. You know what I'm saying? Like, at some point in time, the fact that the motherfucker showing up in a jetpack loses you. You're like, okay, this pizza's uncooked and it's cold. So I think that's where we're at the state of things towards the latter end. What are your thoughts on that?
It's
and I know I'm bouncing all over the place. I know we were supposed to be talking about the good.
Yeah, I know, but it all kind of correlates. So that is that was an issue. That is an issue. It's like they have a lot of good stuff there, but they just have to finish that one last thing, like the games. They have They have to make it all come together and give you a reason for wanting to buy the console again. Now that's a big issue they're gonna face next gen. They're a huge issue. So I don't know if let me see if it's trying to see the matches up what we're going to come up with next. Because
I think we're pretty spot on. I mean, it's probably, I don't know what you have in your specific notes, but I think you covered a lot of bases of the good and the bad. What do you think, staying in the good realm, what can they do to strengthen this strategy to seal this divide? What do you think they should do?
Yeah, so how can they fix this? That was where we're going. So I think this is kind of a interesting part, because what they have to do is just they have to go all in on launch with the next console. They have to give you they have to make a good case for it. you got your, of course you got your Halo on release, so that's going to be big. You have to have fan favorite stuff like Killer Instinct 2. They have to have a huge launch to make sure that they get you back, because like I said, that's the big uphill battle they have. Because people like going to PC, they want PlayStation, so they have to try to rally people back to their brand. I mean, even if it means getting staying on the PC, but overall the brand needs to get better. And I think the big key here is trying to get the console important again, and bring people back to that, because again, that's where your core is. You can't just ignore that. You have to put all your focus on that, give them an awesome launch, and keep the pedal on the metal, and keep putting out all these games that you bought your studios for. You have to have a strong first year, a even stronger second year, and you just have to keep going. And then you also you have to have things alongside that, like the backwards compatibility thing. That's a thing that they're going to continue.
Yeah.
So that's going to be important for them.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they're going to enhance anything, the way they have, because the PC stuff is also a big news item. During Gamescom, their inside Xboxes. That's a big positive for them every time they try to do shows, because people are always like, "Yo, also isn't that just guiding them backwards compatibility?"
Exactly.
Is this game, because a lot of people have favorite 360 games, and that's going to be big. That's going to be a big thing for them as well, that they can deliver. So there's that as well.
I think that's spot on. And the thing is that as much as we downplay inside Xbox, it's the fact that there's a showcase within itself that they have not capitalized on, right? So I think it's time. I don't think that the show should have went away, opposed to the format. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, I get that you're trying to appeal to casuals. I get that you're trying to appeal to casuals on a casual platform, but I think that the bullet or the connection that isn't being made is that even though casuals flock to YouTube, they don't flock to YouTube for video game news. You know what I'm saying? Like, there still has to be the traditional forms of advertisement in order to do that. Now, they may flock to IGN to see, I wonder, I'm interested in XYZ. So therefore, because I'm interested in XYZ, let me go to a known quantity to get that news. Xbox still isn't, as far as casual accolades, it isn't that known quantity that people go to for news. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and speaking of that, they have to stop putting their big news on IGN.
Yes.
Yeah, because that's the way you make your inside Xboxes and stuff like that a lot better. They make more impact. IGN is going to give you a good couple clicks. They're obviously have a lot of eyes on them, but when you deliver the message yourself, it's a lot more important for your fans.
If you want to use, this is where, and here's the problem. Where I don't think everything Phil is doing is nefarious. Phil's stubbornness, is his Achilles heel right now. And in order to crack through his stubbornness, you have to be consistent, you have to be direct, and sometimes you have to be blunt. So that's why I rail on Phil the way that I do. But I don't think Phil does it for nefarious reasons. But here's one thing that Phil is lacking in right now. It's confidence. Right? It's not a very confident move when you're the richest company in the world, but you're one IGN that has a viewership that's dropping by the minute. You know what I'm saying? Like, more and more people are watching people like me and Will. You know what I'm saying? They're watching my dog shit channel. They're coming to Will to get that superb Xbox uncut material, right? They're not going to IGN in droves like they used to anymore. So I think and Phil's excuse for that is because, well, people will believe it more if it comes from them. No, the problem isn't sending them to somewhere else. If you're not believable, you have to start becoming believable, Phil. That's the problem. You know what I'm saying? What do you think about that, Will?
Yeah, you don't have to use the middlemen anymore. Your own, Xbox has its own YouTube channel.
Thank you.
Yeah, they have their own show. They have their website. They have people who endorse them and that for free. They could, the fanboys, whatever you want to call them. But they have so many ways to get their message across, but they keep picking the same old ways that antiquated stuff. So that's the thing they have to fix. And I mean, they also have to. I mean, they're doing this now. They're fixing their Japanese support.
Yeah,
they have to keep on that. They have to keep because that's a big issue they've had this gen.
Yeah.
I mean, they've had the big games like Tekken, Final Fantasy, Dark Souls, stuff that usually comes there anyway. But no Kingdom Hearts, 1 and 2, even though you may not like it, but that's still good to have.
You gotta have that variety. I mean, I liken it to the cell phone experience. Like we're paying thousands upon thousands of dollars on cell phones, and 90% of the features we're not using. It's just knowing that those features are there. Just knowing that your phone can take pictures of a bird 50 times as the shit drops from it. You know what I mean? Like that's so cool. You're not. I mean, a lot of these features and the technology in these phones you're not using. With that being said, just knowing that feature is there is a great marketing and selling point. You know what I mean? So
yeah, exactly. And the wider you get your base, the more people will come to your platform and the more attractive. Because so many times I've been like, man, if that was an Xbox, that'd be awesome. Or like some people would be like, oh man, can you please bring let's say like Guilty Gear that was revealed at Evo. I actually put on the developers Twitter. I'm like, can you please bring it to Xbox? I know it's port begging, but hey, you want the game to come to your you would obviously want a game that you're interested in to come to your platform. So that's what a lot of people want from Xbox to keep having
Xbox fought so hard
developers
to even the playing field last generation. Like the third party narrative was wiped away, and it actually was a plus benefit for Xbox in a lot of ways with games that were relative, right? If you do the numbers, Xbox actually had more exclusives than PlayStation last gen. It's just that, well, in the States it did. I don't know what types of games were released in Japan or whatever, but when it came to the games that were available in the States, there was more exclusive content on the 360 and the PlayStation 3. And I pointed out, and Porter Rock showed me that, and I pointed out that a lot of that was junk stuff, but the numbers are numbers, right?
The list you guys are referred to usually, right? List of Japanese games that were
exactly
before Phil was in power or whatever you want to call it.
With that said, to see that working in reverse in the blink of an eye in a Thanos snap, it's so disheartening. Again, it's like getting that Samsung phone for all those features. The features outweigh the iPhone. I mean, I'm just speaking hypothetically, and to know with the next generations of phones, the iPhone has 25% more features. That's going to raise red flags inherently, right?
Yeah, it's like going from like an Android phone with features to like a Windows. It has like less apps.
Literally, yeah.
Less apps, somewhat shaky, stuff there.
That's a spot on comparison. So, with that said, let me see here. I'm sorry. Was there anything else as far as how they need to enhance their strategy that we didn't go over that you had written down?
Well, I think that's pretty much it. But I think if they combine all these things together, they'll have a much stronger brand. And I do think they just have to keep focusing on the console side. Of course, keep going to your PC stuff, but you have to bring the core back in. You have to keep them interested, and if you do that, you'll spread the word and you get more console sales. It's nothing. It's nothing hard. I just don't understand why they are so
reluctant.
Yeah, or they're trying to do so many things at once that it just kind of undermines their whole strategy. So, I mean, will this strategy now work for them in the future? I don't know. That's a huge question. I think if they keep doing what they're doing and kind of taking focus off the hardcore, the console stuff, they're gonna lose more people, and that's not gonna be good for the brand, because then if they stop making consoles, that's not gonna keep people around anymore, and then completely lose everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna be turning into like another Sega or something. I don't really want that to happen. they have a great base to work with now. They have so much stuff going for them. So I mean, all they have to do is just follow a plan, and and they know the people. They know what people want. They just kind of. I don't know if they're talking to them. It's a weird dynamic. It's like people want stuff, but they're not giving it to them. I mean, my hope is that they're just kind of saving a lot of stuff for the next gen, and they're just kind of gonna go crazy. They're gonna be like, oh, you wanted this? Okay, we got you. We're gonna give you Banjo-Kazooie. We're gonna give you Killer Instinct 2. We're gonna give you Perfect Dark, which Matt Booty was also they talked to him about that.
They said, you got this little game called Perfect Dark. Did you forget about it? Yeah,
it's like, were you aware you guys own that? So I thought that was hilarious. So
I for the sake of not being that RIP Xbox podcast, I won't go into all the tinfoil hat conspiracy theories that I have on why they're doing that. I will say this, that for the listening public, and thank you everybody that's listening live. Thank you everybody that may be listening on demand. I will say this, whatever the case may be, force their hand to show you, to produce, to make it an even barter. I've never seen in any relative consumer business line where it's pay me now, I'll give you results later. That's an investment thing. We're consumers. We're not investors. You know what I'm saying? If you want to be if you want investors, then you give me, you give me stock options and things like that. I'm a consumer. We're bartering. So as a barterer, I give you the money, you give me the goods. You know what I'm saying? Exactly. So, I mean, I get it. You make promises to improve all the time. But as far as providing satisfactory product, as consumers, I will just say, just make sure that you guys ask for that stuff up front.
I think we're seeing some of that. Max, of course, with the Killer Instinct stuff.
That
was huge. You got it trending on Twitter.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is a fact, but the Gears campaign thing being shown at Gamescom, that might have something to do with people, raising their hands, like, hey, you guys, you got to show us something. Don't wait till the last minute. The Gears console that a lot of people wanted a new Gears custom console, and then we got it. I mean, they're obviously going to do it anyway, but it's great that they're still doing that, even though it's the end of the gen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I mean, I think we are seeing people speak up, and we're getting some. They're listening to some feedback, so that's good.
I mean, they are definitely. Yeah. I mean, to keep it in a vein of the positivity, because it's there. We're going to see gameplay on Monday. I'm fucking ecstatic. You know what I mean? This is what I've been asking for. Where is the Gears gameplay? And they weren't going to show this until 6 days before launch originally.
Until the launch day. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, that was absurd. And they listened, and again, forced their hand. I see my homie Team Reaper in there, the Xbox aficionado. He said by the end of it all, some of us will be here, some of us will not. Just keep watching. I mean, and if you're just an enthusiast, just to be an enthusiast, that's fine. But again, those that have made investments, there's nothing wrong with you having standards, enforcing those standards, and even the people like T Reaper who has that perspective, he's benefiting. I mean, T Reaper's not going to say, "Oh no, I want it to be the way it was beforehand. Don't show us that gameplay." I mean, he's excited to see that gameplay as well. You know what I'm saying? And that came off the backs of the people that raised their voices. So it benefits all of us. You know what I mean? So.
Oh, you also have Pop Off Gaming came into the chat. What's up?
Oh, what's up, Pop Off? Hey, what's going on, Pop Off?
Thanks for coming by.
So
see who else was in the chat. See, D-Train, you got him. I think we got everybody.
Yeah, I think we definitely got everybody. Yeah. And again, to catch us immediately, please drop something in the free messaging app. It's right there. My lovely Nightbot that's banning people and shit, which we will take care of. My lovely assistant here is just put it out there again. So if you could please just, check it out. Check out the free messaging app.
Yeah, if you got a
And
question, let us know. Oh, what's up, Steph? Steph is here from the.
Steph is here. Oh, hey,
Yeah.
Steph.
What's up, Steph? Thanks, my co-host, helpful co-host on the Xbox Uncut.
Xbox, like, yeah, man. Hey, look, for those that are not familiar, Xbox Uncut has a very acclaimed pedigree. And again, I'm not saying that to pat anybody, but here's the thing. As we begin to wrap this up, when you go, for those that aren't familiar in the the video stratosphere, if you're not that familiar with Xbox Uncut, definitely check it out. Those guys get to the nitty gritty, and I love the show. It is my favorite Xbox show. That being said, when I say acclaimed, I'm not bloviating. I'm not making that up. I mean, when you go and you say, I need to listen to an Xbox centric podcast, where do I go? The general consensus on the World Wide Web, not just YouTube, the general consensus is, oh, you got to check out Xbox Uncut. Oh, you got to check out Xbox Uncut. You know what I mean? I mean, you have institutions like IGN that, again, they're wide reaching, but for a couple of guys that got together that out of their house just broadcast weekly, the acclaim, the accolades that you guys get is phenomenal. In reference to, and the reason why I bring that up is Steph G came through the chat in a few podcasts and dropped some numbers, and I said, wow, you guys are really killing it. So definitely keep up the good work.
Hey, look, thank you so much for the plugs. I really appreciate it. Very kind words. Props to Dustin for the show, and Jason and Steph and Eric and Tim when he stops by, and Chris when he comes by too. We have lots of fun on the show. Always a great time as always. We had Moss on there and Dirt.
We got to come through again. We'll definitely do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then FC Violent. It was always a fun time. We usually do it Wednesdays at 8.
Mm-hmm.
And we usually stream through Twitch, YouTube, Mixer as well. We're not that big, it's we've been on for a while. Low, but we always appreciate people stop by. A boy, Infinity Lion, Josh Desi on Twitter, always has our back. Moss, thank you so much for pimping us out in your show. it's so very nice to you,
man. Yeah,
and listen, man, I really appreciate it, and it definitely helps the viewership because we do get more people. Man, it's always a good time talking to you, man. I had such a good time here today. So, and thanks for the people who stopped by, man. I know we went pretty long, but there's lots of stuff to cover.
There was a lot to cover, yeah. I mean, and I'll say this: I know this isn't the typical, again, over the top Stephen A. Smith kicking down the door podcast that I do, but again, we're trying to. At the heart of a lot of my theatrics is someone that is truly passionate about the legacy Xbox brand. It means a lot to me. I'm not gonna lie, and I want to do what I can do for the community to help foster some type of realization with the brass that, hey, let's do so. Let's go into this new age with our new regime and our new tactics, but let's not forget about the people that brought us here. So I'll do whatever I can. And when I see the diversity within the community, like I said, Xbox Uncut is truly representative of that. They are not Cambridge Analytics, okay, of the Xbox community. Like, you're not going to get Xbox state-run TV. You have a different perspective across the board. You're going to get people that are vigorous about what Xbox is doing. You get people that are not so about what they're doing, but you're going to get honesty. And I appreciate that as a listener and as a true fan of the show. So I definitely appreciate what you guys do. And I will always recommend you, you guys keep up that good work. You know what I mean? So
yeah, thanks T Reaper for that.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. And thanks Moss again, man. It's been your heart is in the right place.
Mm-hmm.
I always enjoy your podcast because you're very to the point, and you don't want the brand to fail. You just want them to get better.
Absolutely.
And I even like I retweet strategy to Phil, the whole, what you should fix
Yeah.
about the brand. And so I always try to get your word out to them so they can understand what they're doing wrong, what they can do better, what they're actually doing right. And I think you have really good points in that stuff. So I really appreciate your contributions to to actually bettering the brand. So that's an awesome thing that you do, and keep up the good work, man.
I appreciate it. I know we and again, you guys like, oh, you guys ran over. Hey, look, Will can attest. We probably went over 30% of the material that we put together. Yeah. So maybe we can do a part 2. You know what I'm saying? Let's see. Yeah. Let's do that. Let's see what happens in the next few weeks, and let's reassess. You know what I mean? Let's do let's do some gradual report. You know what? I'm going to be honest with you, Will. And again, I'm not trying to toot anybody's horn. I'm being authentic here. I love the material that I normally do, but I have a lot. This is what I do for a living, and I had a lot of fun having a discussion in this format. I would love to do it again. You know what I mean? So.
Oh, absolutely. And like also check out Scram Punks every Wednesday. We kind of overlap because we're having the same day, Xbox and Scram Punks, but definitely check out Scram Punks. You got Needfuls, you got Snow Bunny, Dirt Griggity, FC Violent. Sometimes no one stops by there.
Yep, definitely.
Of course, Moss is there.
Well, I tell you what, you guys run until what, 10:30?
Yeah, we run usually 2 hours at max, maybe 2 some change. But usually, I think we usually start at 8. I think you guys start at 9 or so, right?
Well, we kind of pushed it back a little bit. So I mean, you could have a Power Wednesday. You could start off with Xbox Uncut at 8.
Yeah, they lead into the Scram Punks,
and go into Scram Punks. Yeah, we've kind of. When we started at 9:30, we kind of noticed that people weren't coming in until like an hour in. So we're starting at like 10, maybe a little bit like 10:15. So you have a Power Wednesday, do Xbox Uncut, and do some Scram Punks to wash it all down.
Yeah, we'll lead you a night.
Yeah,
you guys hit the ground running. Have fun over there. Yeah, so definitely check out Scram Punks, man. I love the podcast. Really enjoy it. The banter. I know you guys go kind of at a set time, so you don't want to go too late. But
yeah.
I can't get enough of it, man. Great stuff, man.
I appreciate it, and thank you so much, Will, for coming by. Will of Xbox Uncut, everybody. Thank you for joining. Like I said, we only went over 30% of our material, so shit, we'll do this again. Me and Will will talk. We'll get something together. Maybe it'll just be me and him. Maybe we'll throw Neithel's pizza making ass in here. Who knows?
Absolutely.
But no, this was that. I had a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed this. And check out Xbox Uncut if you want more information. It's still www.xboxuncut.com, right, Will? Is that right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, xboxuncut.com. Also, xbox.com/mixer is our streaming channel, of course. And we've gone over that, but yeah, we do have a website. It's updated once in a while, so it's up to date, I believe. So yeah, and then it's pretty much. I mean, I'm usually on Twitter, Winter Soldier. I'm butchering my own name. Shoulder Winter or Winter Soldier. Just look it up. It's I usually have the I'm obviously a fan of characters. So.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of my Twitter handle. Also check out Mighty Moss MM2K at Twitter as well.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much, Will. And with that said, great show, fantastic. Thank you everybody for coming through. Appreciate it. And as always, you guys have a wonderful, wonderful gaming day, and we will do this again. Have a wonderful weekend too. Peace.
Enjoy your weekend, guys. Play games.
All right.
Flying high as a kite.